Hi. Well, I wish this was sort of like last year's CAPA conference where everyone could shake hands and speak to one another in person. I'm still more than honored to be a small part of this conference with one of the few remaining heroes to me left in the United States, and that's Dr. Cyril Wecht, whom you'll see more of in the film. At last year's CAPA conference, Oliver Stone lauded this film frequently, for which I am thankful, because without Oliver's brilliant JFK, I could have never made this film or its companion piece, which are the two definitive films on the murder of John Kennedy and Jim Garrison's investigation into solving that case, into pointing out the birth and purpose of fake news, which still plagues us to this day. The movie speaks for itself. You probably have never heard about this film, and you certainly won't read about it in the New York Times or the Washington Post or any mainstream media. But to the thousands and thousands of people who have seen it on Amazon and iTunes, making it a monster underground hit, they have all said it is the most important movie ever made in America. And as I said, since it speaks for itself, perhaps the filmmaker and the storyteller should speak for himself, and that is more. So I will tell you a little bit about myself, and then a little later on, I'm going to tell you one simple story that reveals a whole lot about me and about my life. And in the telling of that story, maybe it will inspire you to live your life. I hope I don't offend or turn off anyone by first of all telling you this. I am the only person I know who has an absolute and total open mind. The reason I have an open mind is because there's nothing in it in the way of belief in a fictitious God or in any politician and a severe doubter of authority. I only know what I know. I only know what my five senses have told me in my lifetime of experience. And the irony is that while I became rich and famous for a few years, long before you were born, creating reality television, it was a show called Real People. It was by far the most successful show in American history and changed the face of American television. Sadly, for the worst, because when I first got into television, you had to have a modicum of talent or personality or an intelligence. These are all qualities that would get you fired. Now, all you need in reality television now to succeed is an absence of shame. So, in any event, I am 5,000 years old intellectually. Chronologically, I'm 87, and emotionally, I am 8. But it's the 8-year-old that I like the most about myself, because in Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, it was the little boy that pointed out and said, "Hey, the emperor has no clothes." But when I looked at Richard Nixon and Donald Trump as an 8-year-old, I said, "Hey, if the emperor is wearing no clothes, they should be arrested for indecent exposure." And the irony is, when I think about people and telling real people stories and becoming dubbed the godfather of reality television, I noticed this about people, the same thing that Mark Twain noticed. Human beings for thousands of years have inherited tons and tons of new knowledge and new facts and new information, but have not gained 1 ounce of wisdom or humanity or common sense. When I was a kid, I was shocked when people were evil. Now I'm shocked when they were good. I was born to a very dysfunctional family long before it was popular. I was born in the charity ward of the Salvation Army Hospital. My mother fought so viciously with my father that my father decided in 1939 he'd be better off He joined the Canadian Army and went off to fight the Germans in World War II. And my mother, who was an alcoholic, brought uncles into my house as though they were grapes. They came in bunches. They came to bed her, to booze with her, but mostly to beat her. So because of that, I spent most of my time between the ages of 6 years of age and 15 when I quit school. I spent most of my time at a rink, being Canadian, or at a movie theater, or in a library. And when I was 17 years of age, I hopped on a train and ran away to the United States illegally, to Las Vegas, where paradoxically I live right now. I came here to be a professional gambler, and I was very successful at it, even though I was 17. As a matter of fact, there's a picture of me in my autobiography. The autobiography is called Your Mother's Not a Virgin, The Bumpy Life and Times of the Canadian Dropout Who Changed the Face of American Television. But I made a lot of money, but it never made me happy. What made me happy when I was a kid was going to the theater, and at the end it said, Made in Hollywood. I fell in love with the movies, and I fell in love with America, even though I didn't realize till I was a lot older that they had lied to me. But I loved the fact that here was a country that was built on a Constitution and a Bill of Rights. And Gore Vidal said it was created by the brightest men in America, and we haven't heard from them since. So when I decided that I didn't want to make money, but I wanted to make myself happy, I decided I would go to where they made movies. And so I went to Los Angeles. The first place I lived was a boarding house in La Brea and Hollywood Boulevard. In the boarding house, there was a 28-year-old young Republican. I would sort of call him a fascist. It was the time of the Cold War, and he wore this little pin that said, Better read than dead. He wore it in his lapel, and I used to tease him all the time about, why would you want to be dead? Because if you're alive, you can change colors. And it was the first time I said to him that I ever heard the two words together in one sentence, young and Republican. Well, here was a young man who never knew Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the President of the United States, who saved the United States and capitalism from a communist or socialist revolution. He hated him so much. He said that God crippled him because he was a commie. Most of you may not know that FDR had polio. And then that God further hated him by giving him an absolutely ugly wife named Eleanor to wake up to every morning. So that's how vicious this guy was. So I said to him, now I knew nothing about politics. I'm only 17. What do I know? But I said to him, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, from what I've read, saved America by instituting these socialist platforms of Social Security, Medicare, workmen's compensation, unions, an 8-hour workday. And I said, from what I understand, when I go around the city of Los Angeles, I see schools named after Roosevelt and streets named after Roosevelt, parks named after Roosevelt, and all the people sitting around the dinner table are applauding. And then I said to him what I know about Hoover, who was the Republican president who created the Depression. All I know about him is the only thing they named after him was a vacuum cleaner. So everybody laughed and cheered, and he got up and he called the FBI. And he said, there's a commie in this house. And the FBI sent 6 police cars to this little boarding house to arrest this 17-year-old Canadian commie. And they took me downtown, and they fingerprinted me, and they realized that I was no threat to the American government. And I told them, I love this country. I mean, that's why I snuck into the country. I mean, it's built on a series of laws, and it's the only country made up of immigrants from every other country in the world, and I wanted to be one of those immigrants. But they found out that I was only a threat to Canadian shop owners, and they were going to send me back to the place where I had left. But they don't send you back right away. What they do is they gather up a bunch of you and they put you on a plane or a bus. So they sent me to a place called Terminal Island. I was on the third floor, and it was like an army barracks with about 50 cots around, and mostly Mexicans, a few Europeans, and myself. And I didn't want to stay there. I was going to have to stay there for months, but they did say to me, you can have a voluntary departure, John. If you get $28 and you buy a Greyhound bus ticket, you can get back to Toronto. I did not have $28. The only place I could get it is if I called my mother. And I never wanted to talk to her again anyway, but I had no choice. And the only reason she accepted the collect call is to tell me what a bastard and son of a bitch I was, and I deserved to be in jail for the rest of my life because I was such a troublemaker. I wasn't going to stay. So I cased the place, and I decided I was going to escape. Terminal Island could have been a resort. I mean, first of all, it's minimum security. There are no guns around. The guards had no guns. And on the west side of me was the San Diego Harbor, this fabulous San Pedro Harbor. And I thought, well, I could swim to one of the boats and I'd get into the Merchant Navy. On the other side, there was a walkway to a bus stop past an unarmed guard. I could get on a bus and go back to Hollywood, where I really wanted to be. So I cased the place, figured out everything about the place. The fella next to me was Mexican. He was in charge of the laundry. And every day they would gather up some of the laundry, put it in a canvas bag, and dump it down a chute 3 stories down to the bottom where it would be picked up and cleaned. So with my broken Spanish and my Sid Caesar pantomiming, I finally talked him into letting him help me escape by putting me in the laundry basket. So, casing the place perfectly, decided that I would do it on the least busy day, which is a Wednesday. And they helped me get into the bucket. They sent me down the chute 3 stories. Thank goodness there was dirty laundry on the floor where I could land. I landed in the only outfit that I had. I got up quickly and I rushed to the door that led to the bus stop. And it was locked. I was shocked. So then I ran to the west door, which led to the harbor, where I could get in the water and swim to a boat. And it was locked. I ran back and forth in a panic. Now, you can go to the other door that was there because that led to the office. And after about 25 or 30 minutes of this, I got so tired I sat down in the dirty clothes. And I fell asleep. And I was awakened by an officer who said, "Oh, look at this, a live body in the dirty clothes." He said, "What are you trying to do?" And I said, "Escape. What else would I be doing down here?" So he dragged me up to the office and they interrogated me for 1 whole hour. They wanted to know if I had any Confederates who were helping me, conspirators who were helping me. And I said, "No, I did it on my own. I don't speak Spanish, so nobody could help me." So they led me back upstairs. As they were leading me back to my cot, I said to the officer, I said, "Hey, it's Wednesday. Why is everything locked?" And he laughed and he said, "It's July 4th, America's holiday." So from that day forward, all the Mexicans called me Julio Cuatro. But get this, 30 years later, exactly when I was 47 years of age, I got this letter from the officer who picked me out of the dirty clothes. At the time, I was the host, the producer, and principal writer and creator of the most successful show in American history called Real People. And the letter said, "John, you have got to tell me the truth. You are the guy that I dragged out of those dirty clothes." I'm telling my wife, I'm telling my kids, I'm telling all the neighbors. That's the John Barbour that I hauled out of the basement at Terminal Island. So please answer me. So I sent him the most beautiful picture of me, arm in arm with Sarah Purcell, whom my son, as a 10-year-old, found to co-host that show. I'm wearing a $600 suit. And in this 8x10 glossy in the note, I say, thank you so much for sending me your note, because I have been looking for you for years and years. Because if it had not been for you, I would have either been in the Merchant Navy or I would have been in jail. Instead, I am the host and creator of the most successful show in American history. Thanks for the note and enjoy the picture. Now, the reason that I tell you that story is twofold. The greatest philosopher in American history was the fellow Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Power of Myth. And I remembered reading this as a kid, as a non-believer. He said, if you follow your joy, doors will open in the universe that you did not know even existed to help you get to that joy. And my joy was doing what it is that I did then and I do now, and that is to tell stories. The most important story I've told is in the film that you are about to see. And I hope that it brings you the joy of learning something new. And I hope that this little story inspires you to follow whatever joy that you have, to keep going, because we live in very, very, very tough circumstances. But if you follow your joy, you will succeed. And good luck to all of you. And thank you for being here.